My life story has no glory. Words of my past are full of pain. Made it easy.
What is something in your life right now that you wish you had more strength, patience, or ability to handle? 2 Corinthians 9:8 says, "And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that always having all sufficiency in everything, you may have an abundance for every good deed." This verse is incredibly powerful, especially for someone who is spiritually exhausted, discouraged, or wondering whether they have enough strength to keep going. Paul begins with God's ability, not ours. He doesn't say, "You are strong enough." He says, "God is able." Spiritual suffering often makes us focus on our own weaknesses. I've messed up too much. I can't change. I keep falling back in the same things. We must shift our eyes from what we can do to what God can do. Then it says to make all grace abound to you. Paul is saying God will give you the grace you need, not what you want. God's grace isn't a tiny cup that eventually runs dry. You don't reach a point where God says, "I've forgiven you too many times," or "You've used up your last chance," or "I've run out of patience with you." When you genuinely turn towards Christ, you encounter a God whose grace is abundant. Then the verse uses the word always. Paul doesn't say sometimes God gives enough grace. He says always. It doesn't mean life will always be easy. You may wake up spiritually strong one morning and feel completely defeated the next. But God hasn't changed. Your feelings have fluctuated, but God's faithfulness does not. Then it says having all sufficiency in everything. Biblical sufficiency doesn't mean having a perfect life. It means having Christ as your sufficient source, even while your circumstances remain difficult. And lastly, it says you may have an abundance for every good deed. God doesn't merely give grace so that we can survive. He gives grace so that we can serve. God can take someone who feels spiritually broken and eventually use that person's testimony to encourage someone else who is broken. Sometimes God uses the very place where you've experienced His grace to help you minister to others. Maybe you've made mistakes that you're ashamed of. Maybe you're tired of fighting the same battles, and part of you is wondering, how much longer can I keep doing this? You may even feel like your faith is running out. But God's grace does not run out. God promises that His grace is sufficient in the struggle. Your past and weaknesses don't have to define you. If people turn towards Christ, surrender, and allow grace to work in them, God can take even the broken pieces of their lives and use them for His glory. So don't look at yourself and say, "I'm not enough." Look to Christ and remember, God is able. God's grace is not running on your strength, but on His. You don't have to fix your entire life today. Take the next step towards Jesus. Pray, repent where you need to repent, open His Word, ask Him for help, and surround yourself with godly people. And trust Him with tomorrow. His grace is greater than your weakness.
Jesus is not done with me yet. Jesus waits.